Okay, hello. This is the quick agenda we're talking about. I'll just leave it out there, just have a quick look at that. Quickly begin with an introduction of myself. So I've been in the tech world since 2002, building data centers as a solutions architect, being out there on network virtualization, anything data center related, anything you can think of that would help you build out a storage solution yourself or any SP business. So that's my background in all the tech, and I started a couple of months ago at PL. Actually not what I wanted to talk about, so I'm going to talk about what I did with my company in Belgium. So I started a hosting company somewhere in 2003, very focused on web applications, custom applications. It's around 2,000 applications that we're running right now. They use a somewhat decent amount of storage, but nothing compared to the large cloud that's out there. But at a certain point, I got interested in offloading that to Filecoin, which got very interesting a couple of years ago. So I started there looking and researching it, seeing what that could do for us. And at a certain point, we decided on moving our storage from what we got in GCP, that's Google, moving that into Filecoin. What I kind of want to do today is not necessarily focus on my company itself, but more as like what you would be doing as an SP in the ecosystem, and then kind of see what opportunities you possibly have that you can leverage to kind of offset the cost that you have as an SP and kind of move forward for that. So let's talk a little bit about the current state what we have on the network. So as most of you already saw, if you're running an SP business, you have a lot of things to do, right? So you have your team that you may have to maintain. It's an entire business you're running, right? From end to the whole stack. It's getting data, it's moving data, it's prepping data, it's talking to clients, getting data onboarded. I mean, several programs that Protocol Labs is running. You can onboard data directly, like Carol already mentioned, through Moon Landing, Slingshot, or Evergreen. It's about talking to other people on the business side, making friends socially on the network, making sure that you have all those replicas. And this is just your day-to-day kind of like work that you're working on to maintain that SP business, right? Because it's not just providing empty capacity to the network. It's more beneficial to get that actual data onboarded and take it from there. One of the main challenges that I personally experienced from day one is just the deal duration, which is 540 days, is a year and a half. It's one of the big keys, what I'll be talking about throughout the entire deck here, to give you an idea on what the struggles is for an SP to work with that, right? So on that note, especially to the 540 days, looking at just compliancy, if you look at HIPAA regulation, that's 6 years. A lot of research in the US, for instance, is that when your research is done, 3 years after, you still need to keep copies. So these are kind of key dates that I'll pull you through during the slides. For GDPR regulation, you're kind of looking at like how that is stored a certain way, and looking at that. So another thing, I just put it in there, we're kind of at a stage that I think Joao talked about it earlier today, is about big change. They right now have a marketplace where you're actually paying to get that data in. So I'm just kind of highlighting a few things that are going on in the space. Okay, so main thing for me, deals expire after a year and a half. This is one of the big conversations I had with my clients all the time, is because at a certain point you mentioned Filecoin and how you're leveraging the network to store all that data. They'll do their own research and start asking specific questions on how you solve that, which at this point, it's a matter of resealing the data, right? So that's what you're doing. Looking at what the how that works at this point, to give you an idea, I usually do 3 to 7 year deals because that's what most customers want, depending on what they're working on. So if you look at what that looks like on the network, if you want to store it, for instance, for 3 years, which is a good example, saving it 2 times on the network is 1,080 days. So you're not even hitting those 3 years. That means that you'll have to seal that data that you prepped for your customer 3 times over to cover the SLA that you made with that customer. So that's 3 times the work, 3 times the work that you'll be doing to seal that data on the network, making sure that it is available for your customer. Imagine that doing that multiple times on the network. So that's the kind of work you'll be doing if you're sealing it for more than those 540 days. That's why I like the initiatives that Protocol Labs is doing, especially on the Evergreen program, which has the automatic renewal if you add like some scripting to it, and also some programs where you can get data going right away. So it's just okay. Another one. And it will make sense in a couple of slides what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to highlight a few key things happening right here. So storage is free, right? That's what we're doing. I believe that that's an interesting narrative, how we put it. I don't think it's completely free because everything on top of it is work that you'll do, and you're probably working with your customer or your client to leverage that network for you. So after 540 days, what are you doing? What kind of service are you providing to your customer at that point or to your client? Are you gonna reseal that data? Are they gonna prepare that data for you, present it to you? Is that gonna be on the client side? Is that gonna be on the SP side? These are all conversations you need to have during any conversation you have with a client. This is purely looking inwards from an SP perspectives or talking to that customer, having that enterprise conversation, building that relationship with the customer on how you're going to address these problems if you want to store it on Filecoin, which is perfect because Filecoin really leverages a vast network. I mean, makes it available for you to use, but you need ways to explain that to your customer how that is going to work for you in the future, and be very open about it on how that works. Another one, egress cost. It's been mentioned a few times in the network. I'm just highlighting a few things here on cost. I don't know if you can read it all the way in the back, but just to give you an idea, Filecoin right now, retrieval is at $0, so you can just access the data if you need it. Looking at any other cloud, that ranges from 500 to a couple of thousand to even more to retrieve, for instance, 50 terabytes of data, which is insane if you think about it. So another example. To set the stage a little bit, so it's based on 1 terabyte of cold storage in the cloud, and we're moving 10 gig between those clouds or outside of the cloud, and 100 gig down here. Looking at what the monthly cost is right now, is that ranges from $6 to $12 a month for 10 gig. For 1 terabyte, moving 10 gig around, and it ranges from 14 to 22 in the cloud. What we chose to do at my company a year ago, something like that, we set a price point at $3. Not to be the cheapest, not at all, because we could have kept it at $0. More of like an idea like the customer is okay to pay for storage, and it also kind of offsets our cost to make it more efficient for the customer. I mean, if you're moving around data, doing all the services that I just talked about, you kind of make it a little bit more fair because the customer knows all the work you're doing and they're happy to pay for it. It's my experience so far. So. The Linux model, how I call it. So to give you an idea on how we solve that, look at a 7-year period nowadays. We do a lot of accounting software, which the government asks you to store for 7 years. So that's the premise. Looking at the 540 days, you don't know what it's going to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, how the network is going to look. The block rewards are going to decline. So you need to kind of know how you're gonna still provide that same service to your customer. Now, the idea we had was like, be very open with your client. We kind of get into that conversation, and we got a little bit into, we'll let you store the data for free for the first 540 days. And within the contract, you kind of have that conversation at almost at 540 a day to talk about what are we going to do next? Like, what did the network do? How did it shift? What's the comparison to cost? What is the amount of block rewards being made? What is the fill price? You take all that into account and kind of like not renegotiate, because the customer already upfront knows what the cost is for the storage, but more like make that conversation possible to make it cheaper for him. Let's put it that way. I mean, if customers that I talk to, and I'm not going to say I have 1 million customers like a cloud provider, but I'm talking about a couple of hundred, they are all super happy just by paying 10 to 20% less on their storage, especially when it comes to cloud storage. I mean, if you can shave off 10% or 20% of the overall cost that a customer has, and looking at the amount of storage it is, they could save a lot of money. While if you look at it, you still have that 80% margin what you can use to actually provide those services to your customer, making it absolutely not a problem, especially looking from the smaller SPs and up. You can definitely leverage the network to your advantage at that point, because you have a vast amount of storage available, which you don't need to have sitting in your data center even, and you can just use it to your benefit any way you want. Other thing, what we worked on is some sort of a rebate solution. Again, being very open to your customer in a way of, look, you just start paying me now. It's $3 per tip a month. Customer happy to do that. And at a certain point, after those 540 days, you just look back on how much storage they consumed, and you'll have that conversation. Well, not necessarily conversation, because they already know what it is, but kind of like make it that way that based on the storage they stored, it's on Filecoin, it has a certain QAP, you know the amount of block rewards being made on that amount of storage, and you kind of build it in as a rebate solution to their total capacity they've been using. So again, it comes back to, is it going to be around 10 to 20% in discount that they'll have that based on the storage they're using, right? On average, what we do right now, because the first contracts are looking to be renewed, we're looking at a 36% discount right now, which is based on what the network provided, which is already pretty high in my opinion. And that's why I like to change the narrative a little bit of not having it 95% discounted, but more like 30% maybe discounted, because it's a way different conversation that you will have with your customer. I mean, all the things that I just mentioned, looking at all the different things you're doing, a customer knows you need to put in a lot of work to safeguard their data, make it distributed, have that sitting on the network. Even if you get paid by the network through block rewards, they still know that will decline. And of course, it needs to be offset against cost at a certain point. So they're fine to have that conversation. And on that note, that's all I wanted to kind of like convey, kind of telling you how we did business on that part. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that note. Feel free to reach out, anything storage provider related or any other topics that you want to discuss on business models or how we approach certain things at Linux. So feel free to reach out. That was it. Thank you.